Welcome back to the Law News Network. I'm your host, Caroline Polisi, where we're bringing you coverage of the verdict watch in the Holly Bobo case. That's the trial against Zach Adams for the brutal kidnapping, rape, and murder of 20-year-old nursing student Holly Bobo. We're on pins and needles here. The jury is deliberating as we speak. We will take you live to the courtroom as soon as we get a verdict in that case, but who knows how long it could take. It could be several days. And until then, we're going to take you back through some of the testimony in this trial. Crazy trial, a lot going on, which is why we have great guests to come and break it down for us. I'm joined right now with Paul Stanley. He's a freelance journalist and he's in Savannah, Tennessee. He has been following this case from the very beginning. Paul, thank you for being with us today.
Caroline, yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, so, talk to me about we've come to the end. So we've sort of been through the ringer. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. How are you feeling about both the prosecution's case and the defense's now that we've heard sort of everything that they have to offer?
I think the prosecution did a much better job in presenting their case. I think the defense seemed very unorganized. We especially saw that in the closing arguments. I think Jennifer Thompson rambled a lot and really didn't drive home the point that her client was innocent. This trial hinges on Jason Autry, in my opinion. I mean, in everything we've heard, I think you can throw out the cell ping data and those kind of maps because a body does not have to be with a phone. And if I'm sitting on the jury and I hear that, I'm like, okay, that doesn't really tell me anything. So it comes back to the credibility of Jason Autry, and the people are divided on whether they believe him or not.
Right. I agree with you, Paul. Jason Autry is sort of the star witness. We heard earlier this morning, I replayed for our viewers the prosecution's opening statement. They promised that the story that Jason Autry was going to get on that stand was going to be the story they were going with, and he really delivered. And, I felt, even though Jason Autry, isn't the most sort of credible guy, shall we say, I felt that his testimony was compelling, and it seemed like he was telling the truth. Is that the impression you got?
Absolutely. One of the local attorneys summed it up very well when he said, criminals can tell the truth, good people can lie, and it's up to the jury to decipher between the two. Exactly. And all in all, I think Jason Autry had a believable, credible testimony. Now, there are faults in it, and obviously he participated in this. Why didn't he look under the blanket? Why didn't he stop Zach Adams? We could ask a million more questions, but we don't have that before us right now. I think the jury, they have the case today, started about 3 o'clock yesterday. My call all week has been we're going to get something about noon to 2 o'clock on Saturday. I believe if it goes much past that, then that's in Zach Adams' favor. Is there going to be significant doubt to where we can't get 12 people to agree?
Absolutely. I think the longer this jury deliberates, the more and more likely we may see a hung jury or a vote of not guilty. I am inclined to believe that we're going to get a quick verdict in this case. I'm a defense attorney. I'm pro-defense, but I'm sort of with you. I think that the defense here was all over the board. Again, as a defense attorney, you really want to present a cohesive counter narrative that, look, the state's putting forward this very well laid out sequence of events that took place. They're telling the jury, they gave them a timeline of exactly what happened, where these four defendants were during the time of this crime, and the defense really not doing much to combat that sort of narrative. Now, of course, we all know the defense doesn't have to put forward a counter narrative, right? It's just their job is only to poke holes in the prosecution's theory. All they have to do is raise enough reasonable doubt for that jury to say, well, I'm not 100% sure that that's how it went down. However, we've been really kind of hard on that defense attorney here. She, hasn't been raising a lot of objections in this case, and I don't know if her alternate theory is going to really pan out. We heard from Dicus. I want to ask you about what you make of his testimony on the stand. That's kind of their one and only hope at sort of a counter theory of who perpetrated this crime.
Absolutely, and I think trying to lay it on Terry Britt. Look, we don't have a charge from Terry Britt,
right?
And the thing that struck me the most in his testimony, Caroline, is when I think one of the TBI agents said, well, yeah, we had Terry Britt saying, well, you got me, or, what can we do on the plea deal or whatever. Isn't that a great time to take a ride down to the police station and get this in writing and get a signed confession and move on? Why wasn't Terry Britt ever arrested? I also think the lead TBI agent at the time, now a criminal attorney whose office is about 500 yards from where this trial is taking place, in Terry Dicus, I do not think this week fared well for him. I think it was very evident that he bungled the investigation and was too focused on Terry Britt without being able to close that and bring that home and charge Terry Britt. Going back to the defense attorney, I love it when we have a defense attorney such as yourself or someone with that experience and talk about this who can take that perspective. I believe Jennifer Thompson did a very poor, almost a miserable job in this case. I'm surprised she took the lead for a week and a half and didn't let some of her associates step up and take a stab at it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are wondering why we didn't hear from sort of more people sitting at that defense table. Absolutely. Now, Paul, I just had on Leah Beth from Fox 13. She was a reporter, and I asked her because my own personal sort of hang-up in this case is the Clint Bobo element, the Clint piece. And I'm just dying to hear your perspective. Do you have any information, or can you shed any light on sort of what role he played in this whole story? Remember, just for our viewers, the story that the prosecution is setting forth is that Clint sort of woke up that morning and saw Holly being led out to the woods by a man in camouflage who he assumed was her boyfriend. He then called his mother and said, what's going on? Holly was going out to the woods with her boyfriend, and Karen Bobo, Holly's mother, said, that's not her boyfriend, Clint. Call the police. Of course, we heard from Jason Autry get on that stand, say that actually Zach Adams, in fact, told him that Zach was over there that day to teach Clint how to cook meth. So a lot of different stories here, and it does raise a question. It is a kind of a weird story that the prosecution's putting for us. I've always kind of had some questions. What do you think?
From the very beginning, and I can't name the source on this, but from the very beginning, I had someone connected with the case tell me that Clint was not divulging all the information that he had, or that was their opinion. I think that's true. I think if I was Dana and Karen Bobo, I would have pulled Clint aside right after this happened and said, young man, you tell me exactly what happened and what have you been doing. Our first objective is to find Holly, and then we'll deal with this other later on. A long time, almost 6-7 years has gone by since then. My personal opinion is this. Clint was involved with that group of people in some fashion that was probably drug related. One of them came over to the house that morning. It ticked Holly off. She went into a rampage and started yelling and screaming at him, maybe even threatened to call parents or law enforcement or somehow a little slight verbal altercation, and things went downhill.
Okay, but Paul, I mean, if you believe that narrative, then what we have to believe then is that Clint Bobo sat on this information for years about the death of his sister, and for fear of getting implicated in this crime, he in fact knew. I mean, that strikes many people as just difficult to believe, that he would not come forth and say, look, I did have something I wasn't obviously involved in the crime, but I do have some information about this crime. That's difficult for people to believe.
Caroline, I struggle when we talk about this, because I'm not trying to, as we say in the South, throw Clint under the bus, because there are just so many facts that I don't know. But as you point out, there are so many questions we all have that, Clint, we need to know more. And my personal interest in this as a journalist is, after the trial is over with, to explore this in a book. And I want to really dive into some of this. And as a defense attorney, I mean, and our viewers know, there's only so much evidence you can bring into the courtroom. From a procedural standpoint, from a credibility standpoint, you can't throw everything on the court and the jury that you think, because you have to have a reason for it and a foundation. So I really want to dive into this, and it's going to be hard questions for the Bobo family. What did Clint know, and when did he know it?
Absolutely. Are you hearing anything about the Bobo family, about their initial uncooperativeness, as shall we say, with police investigators? We had this sort of theory floated out there that they were not initially really cooperative with investigators. And I just want to know what you're hearing about that, besides the, lying about Holly's age for the Amber Alert. Any credence to that testimony that they were under review in the beginning from the police?
I have not really heard that or heard a lot of people talk about it. I think the crime scene was bungled right from the beginning, because soon after it was, people were alerted you had 100 or 2 people on their property wandering around. Dana Bobo, the father, said that he put lawn chairs in front of the garage entrance so everybody wouldn't, tramps in and out where the car was. I don't know if they were uncooperative. I think they were worried and concerned, maybe didn't know what to do. I certainly want to know the truth about what transpired, if anything, between Clint Bobo and anyone from the Austin, Autry, or Adams clan.
You and me both. That's sort of my number one question in this case. So we're together on that one. Paul.
But let me point this out. Let me dive in. You're a defense attorney. If you're the prosecution, do you really want to throw Clint Bobo up there? Does that help you? If you're the defense attorney, do you look forward to that, or do you think, I can't defend my client and get involved in Clint stuff right now? So,
sorry, I lost you.
How do you handle a Clint Bobo in a situation like this?
It depends on if you have anything to corroborate any testimony. So the question is, again, it's up to the jury to decide how credible that witness is. But you take your witnesses as you find them in this industry. So the question is really how he would play to a jury and whether or not he's going to come off as believable. So, and then secondly, whether or not you have corroborating sort of evidence to verify, his side of the story. So I think it could go either way there. I certainly don't think that this theory that Jason Autry threw out there is good for the prosecution. Obviously, that was sort of a win for the defense, because it's raising a lot of questions right now in the juror's mind, because that does seem like a plausible, a plausible argument. It's just a weird. Again, it got off to a weird start. The story with Clint calling and saying, "I see this guy taking her into the woods, but I thought it was her boyfriend." I mean, there's just something that doesn't sit right, and it sounds like a more plausible theory, certainly, that there was some connection between sort of this band of sort of these ne'er-do-wells and Clint. So. Who knows, though? Again, as you stated, you have to bring in the court of law. You need sort of foundational evidence to bring stuff like this in. But we got it in. We got at least the theory of it in. The defense got that in there. So we'll see if that's enough to raise reasonable doubt in the jury's mind. Paul, thank you for being with us today. Do you have any sort of final thoughts on this trial? You're really on the ground there. What's the community sense like? What do you feel? Where are you leaning in this case?
The community has wanted justice brought to this case from the very beginning. Decatur County is 26 miles from where the trial is taking place, but all throughout this region, maybe in a 100-mile radius, people were very familiar with the case. They want justice done. I would tell you that the vast majority of people on the street believe that Zach Adams was involved, believe he is guilty. What they are struggling with, given the testimony they heard, just like the jury is was he intricately involved, and if so, does that expand beyond a reasonable doubt? Most people want him convicted, but they're saying, is there enough? And that's going to be the task of those 12 members of that jury.
Difficult day for that jury. I wonder what's going on in that deliberation room as we speak. Of course, we will take you live to the courtroom there if we do get a verdict in today. Paul, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure. Your insights are invaluable, so thanks for being here with us.
All right. Have a great day, Caroline. Talk to you later.